For today's review, we are looking at the Solomon Grundy build figure from the Arkham City build wave. This figure captures that theme of monster in the sense of the undead, and I like that about this figure. Now, what I don't like about this figure is the fact that it is very cheaply made, and it comes down to the plastic quality, which I want to get out of the way first because I kind of want to talk about the critical stuff here. When you charge for a full wave to build a figure, right, you would expect that that build figure would come out feeling like it's made with care, right? Like the plastic quality and the material they use is good because this is a bonus figure in a wave. You're paying over like $110 to $120 for the entire wave if you're buying it for just retail price without waiting for a sale. And that's a lot of money, right? To buy 4 figures just to build a 5th one. And you're hoping that this 5th figure will feel solid in hand. There have been numerous build figures that I have built from this line that have come out solid, where it feels like what it should be, right? It feels just like every other figure. It's given the same care, the same treatment with the plastic and everything. But then you have this figure where it is the opposite of that. It feels like a cheap piece of plastic that was rushed out of the gate because of meeting some sort of quota. I don't know. I don't know the reason why this figure came out the way it did. Certain things happen behind the scenes that we don't know of during production, but it sucks. And that's the one thing that hinders this Solomon Grundy figure from being a good figure, is the fact that it feels like a cheap piece of plastic. And what I mean by that is the fact that this figure's chest or torso piece, like this entire area right here, is hollow. There is no weight to it at all. Usually when Mcfarlane makes figures like this, at this like size, they usually have some sort of heft to them, as I like to use that word. Kind of like there is some sort of weight to the plastic, so it kind of balances everything, so the arms and the legs. But in this case, because the torso doesn't have that weight, and it's literally a light, hollow piece of plastic, and if you actually hold the torso by itself, if you have this figure, or you have never assembled this figure, but you just have the pieces, just knocking on the plastic, you can tell it is this hollow, cheap piece of plastic. It doesn't feel like something that was using the best material, right? And then on top of that, these arms are the only thing giving this figure weight, right? You have the arms and the legs, and when you put them all together, then this figure has a little bit of weight. But it doesn't have the same amount of weight as you would expect. It still feels light. You can still hold this without any sort of like feeling any heaviness to it, right? Compared to a figure like Devastator, where that Devastator figure, when you hold it, it has some weight to it. That's an example where the plastic quality is subpar. It is better. It actually has that sort of like care to it where the figure is heavy. You would think this would be the same thing, but it's not. And I think that's one of the reasons why this figure rubbed me the wrong way, because when you have this cheap feeling on a figure, that's never a good sign. That's always where it feels like, oh no, are they cost cutting? Like, that's not good. This is not surprising, though, because usually a lot of these figure companies do tend to cost cut. If it's not on the plastic, it's on the accessories, right? We've seen this time and time again. If you've been collecting action figures from different lines, you would see cost-cutting measures being used. So I don't know what the reason is for this figure to come out the way it is, but that is the first grievance I want to put out, where that is what I dislike about this figure. It is the overall quality of it. With that said, now let's move on to the aesthetics, because this is the areas that I do like about this figure. And I'm going to zoom in on the aesthetics. So there is a lot of sculpt work on here, right? You can see the veins, you can see the muscles, you can see the green stuff like stitches that I think should have been painted better if they were trying to go with that glowiness of it, right? Like he's been brought back. There is a lot of texturing on his pants, right? Even though this is painted really, cheaply, doesn't look that good, I still like the fact that there's texturing all throughout his pants. Also, the clothes he's wearing has a lot of texture, right? Like, that is pretty nice. And there's also this wash to it. And then you also have, these chains that are on his arms, right? Like, this is painted nicely with some sort of wash to it. So there is some sort of, like, good painting to this, to the sculpted areas on the figure. And I do like how that came out, because that still makes the figure looks good in some aspects. But that doesn't hide the fact that it's still poorly made in the quality sense. So, yeah, there's that. As for quality control issues on my copy, I do have one, unfortunately. It comes down to the joint. So, because the torso up here is hollow, right? And these legs do have some sort of, I don't know if they have much weight to them. It doesn't feel like it. But they are heavy, right? They do have some weight. Maybe this is just a joint problem on mine, but on this side, it's really loose, as you can see. That sucks. And on top of that, when you put the legs into the joint here, it was really hard to put it all the way in. Like, even as I put it in, it's like not as tight as it wants to be. So, I mean, I fit the legs in so they won't pop out anymore. But in the beginning, when I was building this figure, it was really hard to put the legs together for some reason. I have no clue why sometimes it's like that. It felt like I was going to break something too. That's how bad the plastic felt when I was putting this guy together. And then on top of feeling like really bad plastic, you hear that noise? So when you don't move this figure much, his arms will freeze or lock into place. And that scares me too, because that feels like something will break. So yeah, there's just a lot of these like little areas that kind of scares me a lot with this figure, the way it came out. As for his head sculpt, I think that this is a really good head sculpt because he's bigger. Here we go. Let's see if we can show the head sculpt better. So as you can see, that's a really nice looking head sculpt. I like the way that that came out. It's very limited in range, so he's not going to really look up too much, but it's still a very nice Solomon Grundy head sculpt. It has, a good amount of detail to it right there, and I like the way that that came out. So, aesthetic-wise, everything is good in that department. As for articulation, though, there is a limit to his articulation. So, as you can see, his torso is one entire piece. There is no cut. So, the only movement that this has is it can lean back and forth, and it can rotate side to side, right? So there's that. His head articulation, he can look up that much, which is not really anything. He can't even look down. He can't even look up, actually. Never mind. He can look up a little bit. He can't even look down. He can tilt his head a little bit side to side, kind of. He can turn his head, like, to that much, because this jacket piece, which is actually removable, you don't actually have to have that on. This piece actually came separate with the build figure, so like you could technically have him without that piece on, if I remember correctly. It is removable, so, but because it's on him, it does affect his head movement because of how high the collar piece is. So that is one thing. His arms, they can go all the way, right? This side does hinder it, but I'm pretty sure they can go all the way around if you want them to. They do have single joint, but there is a rotation right there, a swivel. He does have movement in the hands. There is a joint with the hands right there, so you can see it moves. It also swivels. So the arm articulation is pretty good. As for his legs, they are pretty simple. They don't kick out too much because of the piece right here being stiffer. They can spread out a little bit, not too much. And they do have single joint, and also, is there a... Oh, and swivel down here. And of course, he does have feet articulation and toe articulation. So he has the usual sort of articulation points that they would give a character like this, which is good enough for him. However, because of those problems that this figure has, right? The whole, like, not feeling like it's a good quality figure, it does take away some of the articulation that he can do. And on top of that, because he feels really, stiff in a lot of places, even on my copy, I would not recommend this figure. They are re-releasing this figure as a 2-pack this month, actually. It's like the, what was it called? The Detective Vision style, where it's painted all yellow, and then you can see like the inner skeleton structure. It's essentially the same figure. I don't think the quality's changed. They just repainted it for that release with the Batman 2-pack. And if you're okay with these sorts of issues, where even though it feels kind of cheap feeling, but you need a Solomon Grundy, I guess it's really up to you, but I wouldn't recommend this figure. Honestly, this is like one of the build figures that I did not like because of the way the quality of the figure felt. It's not the sculpting or the aesthetics. Like, all of this is good, right? This is something that I'll emphasize. All the other elements are good, but that bad element about it is just the release in this poor manner that takes away what this figure could have felt like if it was given better quality. That's what I'll say. Yeah, and that is our look at Solomon Grundy. Unfortunately, it sounds like a very negative sort of review for this figure, but I can't look past those areas. When you review a figure, you have to point out the elephant in the room, right? You have to point out the issues. And this is the main issue with this figure. It is the quality. It comes down to that being the hindrance of this figure. So, with that said, if you found this review informative and you like the way that I review figures, you can give this video a like if you want to. If you want to subscribe to my channel to see more figure reviews and other content that I do on my channel, you can do that as well. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I upload these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.